Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the soundtrack for the NES version of Tetris, released in 1989 after the much more popular and iconic Game Boy version. It was composed and arranged by Hirokazu Tanaka and is available through the Nintendo Music app. This is the same guy who did the Game Boy version, so it's pretty similar. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 5 out of 9, so 1 over half here. This album is alright. It's missing the iconic Tetris theme from the Game Boy version, Koro Baniki. Instead, it has a rendition of Tchaikovsky's Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies from the Nutcracker, which is also good, although a kind of a different kind of iconic. It's also missing all the two-player music from the Game Boy, which is kind of disappointing since most of that stuff is pretty good. The original music here is fine, but as with the Game Boy version, the arrangements are the much more sort of impressive feature of the album. It flows alright, although at less than 10 minutes, it's pretty short. There aren't many extra sound effects here, which is nice since I don't usually feel that those add very much to an album. Overall, a pretty decent album for what it is, but not as outstandingly iconic as some of the other stuff kind of coming out at the time. It's weirdly shorter than the original, well, the other version for the Game Boy, which is very strange because the Game Boy did not have as much processing power as the NES as far as I'm aware. So my favorite track here is probably the ending track, Ending. Tanaka is pretty good at writing these end credit songs, and this is no different, although I still think that some of his other original work is probably better. So I rank this soundtrack second out of the two Tetris soundtracks so far. Definitely not as good as the Game Boy one. Hardware-wise, they sound pretty similar, but the Game Boy version definitely has a bit more going on and really takes it with the more iconic Tetris theme and two-player music. Yeah, the Game Boy is definitely superior here. In terms of overall NES soundtracks, I rank this one fourth, right in the middle. This soundtrack is better than the Kid Icarus, Metroid, and Super Mario 2 soundtracks, but not quite as good as the Legend of Zelda or the other two Mario games. The Tetris soundtrack is definitely middle of the road for NES albums. It's got enough iconic stuff to be memorable and pretty good, but it's clearly not as good as the real iconic stuff, and it doesn't have a lot of extra things going on to really push it over the edge. Overall, pretty much just alright. Also, because it was released the same year, it can't take the top spot for Nintendo soundtracks. That stays with the Game Boy version of Tetris, which I've already stated is better. And this one obviously doesn't take the top spot overall. That stays with Billy Joel's Stormfront, which is definitely better than the NES Tetris soundtrack. It's also better than the Game Boy Tetris soundtrack. Yeah. So, thank you for watching. Next up will be the Dr. Mario soundtrack for the NES. Much like Tetris, the NES and Game Boy soundtracks for Dr. Mario are different, so I'll be reviewing them separately. But unlike Tetris, the NES version came out first, so I'll review that one first, and then I'll review the Game Boy one. It'll be interesting to see kind of a similar situation, but with a less iconic game. Probably from Tetris to Dr. Mario. So stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.